Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
Hello.
How are you, mate?
How are you, sir? Look at me in my nice posh office.
You're in a nice posh office. God, you're one of them now, aren't you? You're all promoted.
Well, I've got time for you now, to be honest.
Yeah, I ain't got time for this shit.
Don't go that far.
Have you got special bird shit on your shoulder now? Have you got like your own parking space and stuff?
Oh, no. Sometimes I have to park like a few meters away. It's disgusting.
Do people have to stand up when you enter the room?
Yeah, even the cleaners, I make them do it.
You just I'm going to leave the room and come back in again so you can give me some respect. Okay.
And then like,
or
who's he? I don't even know who he is.
Do you mostly like just make up your own time now? Just fuck about going from station to station, and then when someone asks if you actually got a real job, you just go to a different station? Is that what it is?
You got it, that's it. Yeah.
That's what it says in the brief.
I have to send an email, and as long as I send an email every couple of hours, just to leave some sort of audit trail.
You can automate that. You can just automate that.
I thought of that, yeah.
Mate, no, in a serious note, right? Like I always say to people, if something's really important, schedule it to go at 9 o'clock the next morning, because like it's the end of the day and you're like, oh god, I need to send so and so something really important. If you send it then, it's going to be like whatever number 27 down the list of emails. But if you schedule it for 9 o'clock the next morning, it's more likely to be towards the top of their email list. But even if like when you send somebody, oh yeah, I've booked your fitness test for 3 weeks on Wednesday, they'll fucking forget. So make one of your tasks before you finish then. And some systems obviously automate this, but I like schedule an email. And you can do this with text messages as well. You can do this with SMS. I mean, nobody sends fucking SMS anymore. We're all on WhatsApp. But every now and again, I will drop back into SMS because you can schedule an SMS message. I do it. Yeah, I do it with people every now and again. Sometimes like with a birthday or with a thing. Like if I know so-and-so's got an interview on Friday, I'll like schedule a message for Friday morning, which sounds like I don't care, but I do care. But like I'll just forget because I'm shit.
It's better that than forgetting that, because that shows you don't care, doesn't it? I'm thinking the email thing as well. That's good, because if you send it at 9 o'clock, it looks like you've got in your office early. And you're on top of their mind.
6 a.m.
First thing that you thought about as you said.
Yeah. just fucking grinding it out.
You're sending emails.
Yeah, that's it. You don't want to be that wanker that's got like the 1 a.m. email though, and you're like, mate, really? And they're like, oh, I'm on nights, and I'm like, yeah. Who the fuck is still in the office at 1 a.m., mate? You should either be chatting bullshit with the team upstairs or fucking asleep.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I digress. How are you, brother?
I am good, very good.
How's the training? How's everything going moving into Christmas? Have you sacked it off and you're just going to get fat, or are you just still going well?
No, well, it's sort of the opposite in a way, but it's changed because I'm doing the marathon, and so it's all been the running, which I'm finding. I enjoy it. I enjoy the running, but because it's taken a bit of a slant off what I used to do, I don't really. I'm struggling to not want to get back into what I was doing really. So I'm trying to build, which you shouldn't sort of wipe it completely off. And not that I was a bloody bodybuilder or anything like that, but
no, and there is lots of science behind like putting resiliency into the legs. So you do see more and more runners doing a little bit of work in the gym and stuff like that. Like the work I've been doing with recovery rehab from this tendon. They've been saying, a lot of tendinopathy, resilience and recovery and stuff like that. We do put a lot of resistance training in now because so many runners damage their tendons so much just from volume. They forget that going on a run is like doing a million box jumps. It's all that impact. And that's why people find it hard to believe that like basketball players and stuff have really bad tendinopathy and have effectively what I'd had, but a lot sooner in their life. But actually, when you really break it down, they're doing trillions of explosive movements that are in plyometrics every fucking day. So the load that it places through their tendons.
All that is all on their toes as well, aren't they? They're always constant bouncing, and they're always on their toes and quick change of directions and all that. Yeah, you can see pounding off.
That's it.
Core work as well, because that's what I'm trying to introduce, like cleans and things like that. Trying to cleans and squats and things like that look on the face of it aren't affecting your core, but anything that holds me sort of solid, because that's really important as well, running.
Oh mate, 100%. I've always had a really good core, but I don't very often. Maybe once a week will I ever do any specific core or ab work because everything always has been
Yeah, no, I never
powerlifting
do crunches
or
or anything
different
like
movements or stuff like that. I quite enjoy cable work for core and stuff like that when I want a bit of
that.
variation. Like I'll do like side bends with dumbbells, and then I'll also do rotation work
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
with because I find people are strong in certain planes of movement, but it's when they're transitioning from one plane to another. It's a little bit like hitting a hollow spot. You know
yes,
what I mean? It's a little bit like trying to
yeah,
switch gears in a car and it gets really clunky, or it's like trying to move from one lane into another and
yeah,
there's a big lump in the middle of it because that lump is that hollow spot, is that weakness. And that's where people have those injuries. It's in that, if you were to like look at the front of you in
100%.
like 180 degrees, it's that 30 degrees on your front left and your front right where people have those areas that they'll always injure their back in those areas because they're reaching or going for something.
Yeah,
And it's that hollow spot between their almost central core and their obliques. That's where I find people are weakest. So I like to do rotational. We do like axe chops and stuff like that. You ever do them?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of wood shot. Well, yeah, I do it with like sort of slam balls and bands and things like that. Because coincidentally, I did a post about that on my thing, because that's a big thing of the program that I'm building. Is because that's exactly in a firefight. If you think an RTC, you get these sort of big blokes who can sort of press whatever weights, really heavy weights. But as soon as you tip forward a little bit, or you're overreaching a little bit, and they say to never do it, but it's
You're
impossible
fucking
to
going to do it
avoid. And
anyway.
so
Yeah.
that's the exact, yeah. So when you're overreaching with a weight and with a rotation as well, that's sort of game over for your back, especially after years and years and years. So that's a big thing that I try and build, and it's very rare on the training that I do and what I teach. A bit passionate, that I sort of
Oh,
promote in
yeah.
the program is
Yeah.
it's very rarely like stand there and do a couple of overhead presses. It's always involved with something, or jumping quickly to another movement, or twisting around, because that's so important to build everything up.
Mm. I've enjoyed doing like one-legged stuff whilst I've been doing this rehab because and that's what really got me thinking about again those hollow spots in strength. Like even just leaning forward, picking up a 12-kilo kettlebell off the floor on one leg and transitioning it over to my other side, or bringing it to shoulder height, pressing it overhead, and then bringing it back down and placing it, off at 45 degrees. Stuff like that is so amazing and like
Yes.
so hard to do, and also hard for your ego to do because you're like, oh, what am I fucking
Yeah.
about with this small amount of weight? But you got me thinking when you're talking about those rotations and stuff like that. Even just when we're doing like BA rear creds and stuff like that, the amount of time you get to the top of the stairs or you work your way through and you're hose managing, it's that turning, working from one side, and it's exactly that. It's pulling
Mhm.
across that front rotation, and it's snagged on the fucking door and this and that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
That sort of rotation is not something. And then what do? We go in a gym and go, oh, I'm going to do some sit-ups and a plank. And you go, well, that's great, and it is
yeah,
good,
exactly.
but
Yeah,
again, you're only training one plane of movement there, and also it's all certainly with like an isometric hold like a plank. You're only training that static strength, so it's not the same sort of mobile explosive stuff that you would see on the incident ground. Beautiful.
no,
Um,
definitely.
I was interested in going through some of the stuff we had today because I wanted to kind of do a couple of things with today because we've obviously got some really good like top five kind of things for people to think about and go away with as in the leading causes when it comes to the death of firefighters. So, because I'm really interested in getting into the eating bit. I know you've got some stuff we want to talk to today about sugars and real foods and hydration and stuff, because obviously we're heading into a time of year where most people kind of toe punt rational food intake over the fucking wall, kicking into the long grass. So it's kind of it's a dodgy spot for people as they get into Christmas stand down, which for some people started in October. As the drill yard gets
You've been
less and
watching me.
less interesting and less appetizing, it's hard. And as the plates just get bigger and bigger, and as every single watch and the station manager and everyone starts bringing in treats every shift, it's very easy for the cheese to slip off the cracker, if you know what I mean.
Which is another nice snack over Christmas.
So, with that in mind, kick us
Yeah,
off. What are we looking at?
yeah. Well, I think to me, a lot of people overthink it, as a lot of thing in health and fitness in general. A lot of people overthink it, and it's either one extreme or the other. And every time I start sort of working with anyone really, and whether it's in my job my proper job or the job outside is trying to find where you are now and slowly increasing it. Don't think if you read an article in Men's Health that this is the best sort of weight loss a program that you've ever read, but that's instantly going into like hemp sandwiches and kale smoothies every day, and you don't eat a carb for 18 years. All
Yeah.
that's bollocks. It doesn't. Nobody sort of lives like that, and if they do, they're either going to die younger or they're very unhappy people. So it's all about just taking small steps and small steps. So something that I sort of, in a loose sense, and obviously everyone is sort of different, I break it down into the five first things that you should do. It's easy to say. Whenever you start any sort of nutrition goal, really, and it doesn't really matter what the goal is. So whether you've got 5 stone to lose or you just want to lose a couple of pounds, is trying to find where you are first. So the first one is what are your goals? And again, it doesn't have to be I want to run a marathon or anything overly grand. It just has to be whatever your goals are. Try and find that reason why you're doing it, and that's what you've got to keep in your head. So whether it's to enter a competition or whether it's to enter an event or for health reasons or for your job, we have a lot of people who if they're struggling on a fitness test. Then it's important to think, right, that's my goal. It's not really to improve anything else, and that's my focus. But the knock on of that is digging a little bit sort of deeper. So you want to pass a fitness test, but why do you want to do that? It's so I get to keep my job, so I can
That's what
support
I'm
my
saying.
family.
Yeah.
It's sort of digging a little bit deeper, and that's what you've got to have in your head. So when times are hard, when you are sort of struggling or you're failing for motivation, and that's it's not about passing the fitness test. It's about thinking, right, I've got to give my family a better life, or if I don't sort of do this, a lot of my pension's in risk and things like that. And it's trying to find that. It's a cheesy phrase, but that sort of deeper why, I suppose.
No.
So that's
I totally agree with you. I think finding that deeper why is the biggest part of it for me, because even when we're talking about pension, you can keep stretching that goal or that thought process behind what you think you're trying to achieve. But actually, even when we talk about a goal or an achievement, it's almost echoes that aspect of like a finite mindset of like, when I've got this one thing done, i.e. the fitness test, or I just need to make it to retirement, or I need to this, that is a suggestion. And even the concept of a diet in itself is like, when you're counting that, I've been on this thing for 6 weeks. I always say to people, if you're counting, then what you're subconsciously doing is counting the number of days so you can tell somebody how long you lasted. That doesn't suggest to
yeah,
me that you're making a permanent change. If it's a true why, then that's something that will go visceral. It's something that goes deeper. It's why is always that sort of starting point, isn't it, for any successful change? You've got to know your why. You've got to hope that you can get the hows and the whens and the whos and the wheres and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't have a fundamental why, then your journey to success is going to be fraught with continuous setback. I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said, with a strong enough why, you can overcome any how. And that's it. You can try several hows, and that's kind of what we see in the fitness industry as well. Is there's lots of different hows, but only you will have your own why, and you've got to really be able to drill into that. And I'd encourage people, to go over and look at. I mean, people hear us talking about this, they'll probably have echoes of Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote a great book, Start With Why. And whilst many of those fundamentals are sort of ingrained within the world of business success, for want of a better description, because it talks about how great leaders inspire action. But I always say, in order to lead others, you've got to be able to lead yourself. And that starts with why and understanding your own drivers, I suppose.
yeah, exactly. And it's fine. I suppose if you're writing it on a bit of paper, the word to put in capitals is your why. So it's so easy to read a book or read a magazine, and it looks like because it worked for somebody else, and you think if that's not your goal, you might think that's an amazing sort of training program, amazing sort of diet plan, but you'll try it for a couple of weeks, a couple of days even, and you won't stick at it because it's not your goal. So you've got to find out what yours is and make that personal to you. So ignore the noise, ignore like your mate is doing like amazing things in CrossFit or whatever it is, or doing the keto diet, and you think, oh, that's really good, that means I must, must mean it's perfect for me. No, it's not at all. You've got to find what you want. And I think that whether that comes with age and experience, and you've tried things and you've dabbled and you realise what's important, I think it's and this can reflect in all walks of life really, and whether it's your job and your chosen career and what qualifications you get. A lot of people sort of follow other people, and then they get to that point and they realise, oh, actually, I'm not as happy, I'm not as healthy as he is, because I didn't want to do that anyway. I just sort of fell into it. So it's so important to, it's something I've learned over the years, to do what I want to do and what's best for me and my family and things like that, rather than thinking, oh, I need to do that, I have to do that. So yeah, I think it's really important. Which sort of leads on to the next point. Oh, sorry, Con, you're going to say.
No, I was going to say, talking about when you just said about CrossFitters, just this guy stood out in my mind. We've got a guy called Matt Chan. You ever heard of Matt Chan?
No, no.
No, I hadn't either, to be brutally honest with you. But he's got like fucking millions of followers. He's a firefighter from North Metro Fire Rescue in Colorado, Canada. Amazing guy, and he came second at the CrossFit Games. Absolutely incredible dude, firefighter, CrossFitter. But he's had so many injuries, and his why has changed throughout his life. Between training people to become incredible CrossFit athletes and then having these myriad of injuries and kind of digging deeper behind what the meaning of fitness was to him. And now he trains people significantly more for longevity. Just in their general life, but he's got an incredible story. Really excited to have him on. But anyway, sorry, it just stood out in my mind while we were speaking then.
To be honest, I think that's a good example anyway, as you say, because I think when you find your why, sometimes you might not know it, if that makes sense. So you might stumble into things. So as well as it's important to have your why, it's important to not be really sort of rigid about I've got to stick with this, and you're trying it for 6 months and you're not enjoying it. But you think, no, but that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do. Then there does reach a point where you have to make a decision where you think, oh, I might have to take a little bit of a tangent.
I think that's a great example of strategy and tactics, though. Sorry, like strategy is the wider motorway, and tactics are the lanes. Like your tactic for health and fitness now might be CrossFit.
Like
it might be, it might be swimming. It might be like for me, for the longest time, it was lifting heavy shit. Do you know what I mean? And that was, to an extent, a type of fitness. And I could justify it because I was like, well, I can still run. I can still do my job. I'm still very good at stuff. But that was that tactic that kind of worked for that period of time. But then as I got further down the road, as my journey continued, as life changed, circumstances changed, family, kids, job changed, body changed, I still had the same strategy, which was I want to be a fit, healthy, strong, active person. But the tactic changed. I started doing a lot more swimming. I started doing a lot more mobility. I lost some weight. I lost some muscle mass because it wasn't conducive to that next stage in my life. My strategy hadn't changed. My why hadn't changed. But if I attach myself, if I'm married to the idea, if I'm married to the tactic, then I kind of imprison myself. And you could almost doom yourself in doing the right things for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. Like you say, oh, but I'm doing this sport. But you're like, yeah, but you're not getting fitter because it's not serving you anymore, because it's not conducive, because you've got this issue, you've got this knee injury, you've got this whatever. But if you attach yourself solely to that one thing, if you say, oh, well, if I can't fucking deadlift 200 kilos, I'm not a fit, healthy person anymore. It's a very fixed mindset, and it can also rob you of things like, like I went for a walk at the beach the other day. We took our puppy for the beach for the first time, and we walked probably fucking 10 miles up and down this beach. And when we were sat down in the evening, like my knees and my ankles weren't like super hurting, but they were strained. They were like, shit, I've done a lot of work today.
Yeah.
And that was a rest day. But then I actually thought to myself, you know what, today probably wasn't a rest day, because I've done a lot of exercise today and I've worked all those microfiber, because I was walking in sand. At the end of the day, walking in sand for 10 miles.
Yeah.
It's no fucking joke. I use so many different muscles, and also having a dog pulling you left and right. That's not. He's not too small, because we wouldn't take him when he was really small, because there's a big thing about don't exercise them too much when they're babies. But I always call him a puppy, but he's a bigger now. But yeah, that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Where you say to yourself, oh, I've only trained one day this week. You mean you've only been in the gym one day this week? Maybe you have also done A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. So don't think, oh, if I'm not going to the gym, then I'm not doing fitness, because there's lots of ways of doing it. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent again.
No, that's fine. That's spot on. But it kind of leads on to the next bit of starting small as well. So once you've got your why and you've got your overall sort of goal, if you like, it's starting small. So not going from one extreme to the other, especially if you're starting from a place where you have sort of fallen back, and whether that's in fitness or nutrition or whatever, is a lot of people, it's either 100 mile an hour or zero, and it doesn't have to be like that at all. So what you want is subconsciously and consciously really is these quick wins. So say for example, you want to improve your nutrition and you're thinking, right, I need to lose a little bit of weight. Don't go straight into a really strict sort of mega diet. It's all about, again, it's an overused sort of phrase, but like the low hanging fruit. So any quick little changes that you'll see or feel results really sort of quickly. They're the ones that you want to sort of grasp at, and just start with one of them. So for example, I worked with a client, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but a long time ago. And he used to have, I think it was something like 8 or 9 cans of full fat Coke every day. And he sort of lived quite a solid, a quiet sort of life. Yeah, and God knows the state of his teeth. But so the very first sort of change that I made was I said, don't go to zero sort of cans of Coke, because, you know, at the end of the day you want to enjoy your life as well, and he did enjoy the taste. So the first thing we did was go to Diet Coke. And within, I think it was under 3 weeks, he'd lost something like a quarter of a stone, and that's the only change he made. So he didn't increase his exercise. He didn't really sort of change anything else, and he didn't really sort of notice a difference at all. So that straight away, and then all we did then was slowly reduce. So obviously there isn't any calories in it, so overall it's not bad for you fat wise, but it's still not great to put that amount of Coke. So, but again, he probably went down to, like, so say if he's on 6 or 7 cans, we just went like to 4 or 5 cans and did that for a few weeks. So it's those slowly sort of building up. And once you've done that side of it, then you can start to look at other areas. So it's about taking a look at yourself. So once you've got your why, you have a look at where you are and be 100% honest with yourself, and whether that's a food diary. And it's not to analyze everything, because that's one of the things I like to do, is I like to offer people a food diary assessment, I call it, but it sounds a lot more formal than what it is. But it's not to say I'm going to slag your food off and say you can't eat that, don't eat that, do this, do that. It's just about taking one element, and it could be one element a week or one element every fortnight, and making that change, and just sort of sticking with it, building that. So that's part of your life. So that box is sort of ticked, if you like, and then you move on to the next thing. The more you change at the beginning, the harder it is going to be to maintain. And it ultimately comes down to, it sucks the life out of your life. And I don't want people to not enjoy their life. You know, if you want to have a beer, have a beer. You just don't have 10 beers every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that sort of mentality.
People develop so many negative connotations when they feel like they are having something imposed upon them, or they are being resisting something, or there's that sense of loss, because there's a death
Mm.
of identity when somebody is losing weight, or when they're transitioning out of an unhealthy lifestyle, and they want to take some of their luggage with them. But if they're being told that they have to leave almost all of it behind, then it gets rid of so many of their creature comforts that really scares them. And like you say, that sort of incremental approach to it says to me a lot around. Do you know David Brailsford is?
Yeah, the cycling bloke.
Yeah, the cycling bloke, head of British cycling. He obviously
Yeah.
proliferated this concept of marginal gains. So the theory being that small and significant improvements can lead to monumental results, so otherwise known as that 1% factor, and the incremental benefits. And it was coined, like you said, by the cyclists, the British cyclists that had the massive success in the Olympics and stuff like that. But it's about countless small benefits, from changes in their mattresses to changes in the small bits of food, productivity, sustainable growth, lots of things that you're just looking for that 1% in each of them. So like you said, when it comes to a nutrition concept, it can simply be a spoonful less of this, or using a slight, you're not no longer going to have frosties in the morning, have a fucking smaller bowl. Do you know what I mean? And there's a concept
Yeah.
of do you know about NEAT? Have you heard about NEAT? Non-exercise
Yeah. Yeah.
induced thermogenesis, isn't it? Non-exercise induced thermogenesis, is that it? Yeah, it's about stuff that doesn't rely on you going to the gym.
Non-activity. Yeah.
It's about other lifestyle changes that again give you those marginal gains, because it's all about those 1%. But yeah, I mean, the Dave Brailsford stuff, if people go and check out, I've spoke about it loads of times on the podcast, but it's the Black Box Thinking, the Surprising Truth About Success by Matthew Saad. But it features in Alistair Campbell's book Winners. There's aspects in there. They both tell the story of, I think you have to pay for both of those, but there is I was just looking up a minute ago, there is a audio book for free on Amazon Audible books called How Dave Brailsford Reinvented the Wheel, and that talks about marginal gains, and it's a nice way for people to be able to see the path. They always say you've got to see it to be it, so people want to go and check those out. It's a useful thing to look at.
I haven't read his book, but I've seen him as a guest on a few sort of podcasts, and some of the stuff. I think that's why he made such a drastic sort of difference in most sort of sporting worlds. I think it's because it wasn't a massive overhaul. It was all, well, like the end result was, but it was just about sort of breaking everything down and saying, how can I improve that little bit? How can I improve that? So rather than say for building a brand new bike, he wouldn't do that. he'd have a look at the brakes, or he'd have a look at the spokes. I don't know if modern bikes have spokes, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, but then he also had things like they invented or they worked with some Formula One teams and came up with they used the technology that heated the tires. You know, they need to preheat tires on the race course to stop the cars,
Yeah,
Formula One
got
cars
those little
spinning out.
blankets
Yeah,
on.
they made pairs of shorts for the cyclists to wear in the warm-up area that were heated so that the muscles would sit at an optimum temperature. And again, it came from the technology from heating up the tires because it said, oh, well, so everyone performs at this
Yeah,
optimum. We'll try and warm up, which we will do, like you'll do a physical warm up, but so many of those factors are outside of your control. If you're in a fucking enormous venue and it's freezing cold, you're not going to be at your optimum. So how many of those things can you take into your control? And they came up again with like warming themselves up, you know, with these shorts. Another great little thing. I love it.
yeah. I like the thought of that sort of now. Actually, this time of year, I like to sit down with that short.
Thinking ahead, planning. Talk to me about planning.
Yeah, and again, it's often a technique I don't always sort of use with people, but sometimes it can be before you make sort of changes. So it's all about planning ahead. About sometimes it's analysing what you're going to do the next day, not necessarily making any changes. Now, that may sound a bit sort of backwards, but say if you think you've got a problem with sort of snacking, for example, or your portion size and things like that, the basics sort of stuff. Plan out what you're going to eat for that day and only stick to that. Plan out what you're going to eat for the next day, and plan it out the night before, and just stick to that. Now that could be without making any changes at all. So again, I did this with he was a lorry driver, and he had a problem of, obviously they'd have a lot of sort of stops, and you'd get sort of a stop here, a stop there, it'd pick up a chocolate bar or whatever. And I said, well, don't change what you're eating. So stick to your normal sort of diet, but just plan it the night before, stick it in a box or stick it in a bag. So that is what you restrict. When you eat it, don't overthink it. Just sort of grab something out of your bag, but don't buy anything extra and don't eat anything outside of that bag. Obviously, you could take it out of the bag. He didn't have to sort of stick his face in it, but it's not like an
That's
horse.
a fucking horse.
Yeah, and it's just about sort of
They're knights of the road. You
what you're going to
fucking
eat.
selfish bastard. They're saving our economy. God damn it.
Exactly, I know exactly. So, which is why I still want them to have like enjoyment still. You know, they still deserve to have a chocolate bar if they want a pasty, but just try to stick to that. So you've got some sort of rough control.
Also, just gives you a set point, doesn't it? It actually makes you know what you're
Yeah,
even doing. Do you know what I mean? Because so many people they've not really got a fucking blind idea of how much food they're really eating a day because you don't track it. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of easy little ways like your fitness
exactly.
pals and there's lots of free ways for people to just get an understanding of how much you are taking. I always say to people, think of your food like your finances. You know, you wouldn't randomly overspend. Well, you wouldn't fucking do it for very long because luckily this is the thing when it comes to food and nutrition, you can accelerate straight past zero and no one says stop. In the bank, if you spend all your money, the bank says no. It says you fucking no. Do you know what I mean? It's imposed upon
Yeah,
you and says you've stopped.
yeah,
I mean, sometimes not these days. You can whistle straight past zero and just keep fucking getting into debt. But the theory is eventually they say stop. Whereas with
yeah,
food and
yeah.
stuff, you can just fucking blindly whistle on by, the point where that was acceptable and the point that you needed, the point that your body actually needed. You can accelerate straight past that, and your body it does give you indicators. I.e., you obviously put on weight, you feel tired and lethargic, but there's no screaming stop until like you get to 24
No.
stone, and then the doctor says, "Yeah, you're gonna die in a year," and then you're like, "Oh shit." Do you know what I mean? But we don't get that on a daily basis unless we really bring it into our conscious mind about, well, how much am I eating? You know, how much do I think I need? How much do I want?
Yeah.
And then understanding and connecting it to that why, I suppose.
And I think that's where it gives you an important sort of learning tool as well, which it takes some people years. It takes some people do it sort of naturally, but subconsciously, if you know what you've got to eat for that day and it's in front of you, you start to self sort of ration yourself, and you think, oh, I'll hold on until sort of 3 o'clock before I have that snack because I don't want to use it all at once and things like that. And without realizing it, you're learning about your body, and you think, oh, I can be a little bit hungry for a couple of hours. That's absolutely fine. Where if you're at home or if you're in a shop, for example, you think, oh, a little bit sort of peckish, then I'll grab that. Where if that sort of question is taken out of the equation, it means you have got to, you start to learn, oh, it's okay to be hungry, or, oh, I've had one half of my sandwich, I'm actually quite full, I'll save that for later, because it's a bit like self sort of rationing. And that's the key to losing weight or maintaining weight, is knowing your body, and thinking, I've got 24 hours to eat such and such amount of calories. It's not any more sort of complicated than that. It's just being able to trust yourself and learn how to do that, and eventually that becomes a habit.
Mm.
And that sort of, again, sort of leads on to the next point of what we were saying earlier about not going from not to 100, is changing your mentality of thinking, right, I need to lose some weight. So instead of thinking I'm going to take away food, add stuff. Don't take away stuff, especially at the beginning. It depends what you do. If you're eating sort of 4 pizzas a day, then obviously we might have to sort of take some of them out. But if you eat but like, and I use myself as an example for this. I eat relatively well, but it might have some issues with sort of, I don't stop when I'm full, for example. Especially if I paid for food, I will finish that plate of food. My portion sizes sometimes sort of go out the window and things like that. But the actual food and what I'm eating isn't that bad. So one way to increase your efficiency of your diet and getting good stuff that you maybe not be getting is to add stuff. So if you have got a meal like a curry, is the first example that I always think of. Curry, it's not overly healthy. You can make healthy versions, obviously, but whack a load of veg in it on top of everything else. If you've got a normal sort of dinner, if you're making a chili or a meatballs or whatever, have a side of a salad. So you're still getting all the goodness from the fruit and vegetables on the side of it, and start to change your mentality to add stuff rather than take it away. And it's a simple change, but it stops that thing of like you're restricting yourself, and sort of mentally it's a lot more people can cope with it, with thinking of it sort of that way. Obviously there's limits to that. It doesn't work with sort of desserts, for example. There isn't anything you can add to a dessert other than fruit, I suppose. But if you just start with that, and this is what we were on about at the beginning, it's these small little changes, and if you try these sort of little things for a few weeks, then you reach a point where they sort of not run out, but once they become your sort of way of life, and then you can start to dig sort of deeper about the quality of your food and things like that. The quality of food brings on to the final point, really. And I bang on about him a lot, but a bloke I read and watch a lot is Dan John, an American sort of old athlete, trainer, coach, etc. And his rule of nutrition is really old school, but he says basically eat like an adult. And what he means by that is eat real food. So eat loads of fruit, loads of veg, loads of protein. And I think one of his quotes in his book is it ends the chapter on nutrition is, it turns out your mum was right. So if you go to eat something and your mum says you shouldn't be eating that, you shouldn't be eating that, and you've got a sort of voice in it, your mum was generally right. So eat like an adult. Don't eat a load of cereals. Don't eat a load of processed food. Don't eat a load of McDonald's. And it's not to say you can't ever eat them, but just eat proper food. Make sure fruit and veg is the biggest thing on your plate, and you won't go wrong. And so they're like the first 5 rough goals I give people. And it's important to know, in none of those goals, there's not a meal plan. There's not to say you've got to eat this sort of superfood. You've got to eat this. You've got to eat that. There's none of that. The best meal plans should be a loose guide for people to run with, and then you adjust over time. A prescriptive meal plan, even from a qualified sort of like a nutritionist, unless you've got dietary requirements and allergies and things like that, obviously it's a bit more important then. But a good meal plan should not be on Monday at this time you eat this, on Tuesday you eat this, on Wednesday. That's not teaching someone how to live their life.
No.
That is following a script that someone else wrote, and it's not an effective way to make sort of lifelong changes.
No, 100%. And that aspect of, when you were talking about adding and not subtracting and almost switching things out, there's no solutions, only trade-offs. And every food that you switch out is going to have a different effect on your body, 100%. But it's not always about removal. Do you know what it's about? It's not always about denial. It's not always about having to take things away and stop yourself from doing things. And we think of it with exercise and with life in general, to be honest, that there's always a cost to doing everything. So there's no real sort of one size fits all, but it's more about thinking about what things in your life can you switch out, because you don't have to go and fast for 10 hours a day. It's not about denying yourself. And that aspect of eating real food always makes me think about the roles that supplementation and things play in life as well, and how people almost forget that supplementation in itself Well, it is what it says on the tin. A food supplement is something that should supplement a normal diet. It's not a food replacement. These are food supplements, whether it be protein, vitamins, minerals, or anything like that. They should not be switched out for real food. These are things that should be in addition to an already functioning diet, because so
Yeah,
many people will try and add a dietary supplement or a food supplement to a poor foundation. Do you know what I mean? They'll try and add it into a very poor diet. It's like when I was a kid and you go to the gym and you see the young lad with a fucking protein shake and a McDonald's. It's just like I used to love seeing it, because you see on stations as well. You know what I mean? People who have the fucking donuts and cakes after they've had their fucking seven
yeah,
times
yeah,
massive spaghetti bolognese, and then they're drinking a Slim Fast. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? If anything, that Slim Fast is doing more damage, because actually, Slim Fast is just a reduced calorie drink versus a meal, but you're having it in addition to. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I think people forget this aspect of real food. There's no replacement for that. There's no supplement really for what we should have been eating to start with.
yeah. It's funny as you say that. That's probably one of the most common conversations I've, because once people sort of know you're a PT, and like, obviously like I'm a fitness advisor now at work and things like that, they like you're making a brew in the kitchen at work, and somebody says, "Oh, you're a PT, and what advice?" And the amount of times somebody said, "How much sort of protein should I be having? Should I be having protein?" And while they're eating a cake or something like that, and I always sort of tell people, don't think about protein or supplements. Don't sort of listen to things that you've seen on TV and these rich sort of people who are on God knows what. Don't even start with that, because that's, I use the phrase sort of polishing a turd a lot, because there's no point adding, exactly as you said, it's no point sort of adding that stuff in if everything else is dog shit. You've got to start somewhere. Start with the basics, and it's the non-sexy stuff, because what they want me to say is, oh yeah, if you have a couple of protein shakes a day, you'll lose loads of weight and you'll look sort of ripped and in 2 weeks, where that doesn't exist. The people who have a lot of supplements, and well, it's debatable the ones who need it, to be fair. I think a lot more people take it because they think that they should, and all these sort of B12 things and
To be honest, mate,
BCAAs and all
as we've
that.
had the financial squeeze, I've taken less and less supplements as money's become tighter.
Mm.
I've noticed fuck all difference in my performance or my physique. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
I think I'm actually
exactly.
leaner and fitter because I've been indulging less in certain things, and I haven't been having all of these pointless supplements. But it came from like a time in my life when I was just taking everything, and there was so much noise in the body. I didn't know what was working and what wasn't working.
Exactly, and which is a massive thing. And I think if you especially if, because I know a lot of other sort of personal trainers, and they've got their favorite other like famous personal trainers, if you like. So they, whatever they've seen them do, they instantly say, "Oh no, it's definitely sort of best to do this and do that." And I'm thinking that there's no best way to do anything. I always ask people, whenever you put a supplement in your body, why are you putting that in their body? If they've got an answer, then you think, well, that's sort of fair enough. If it's improved their energy, improved their skin, or if they've got a reason, 100%, then sort of crack on. If they can't tell me why they're taking it, then to me, you don't need it, because you don't know what you're putting in your body. You don't know the benefits of it. You don't know the drawbacks of it. And like you say, the price of everything is shot through the roof. So why waste money on that when you can just, instead of having chips, have baked potato? Just sort of do something as simple as that is a lot more sort of valuable than spending 80 quid on a bag of protein. Do you know what I mean? It's so much easier, cheaper things you can do.
It's so surreal as well, though, when you do remove those crutches. For some people, it's certain pre-workouts, it's certain other supplements, and then you realize it's making no difference whatsoever. But you kind of have to go through that pain barrier
Mm,
of like a month to 6 weeks to really notice that your body can continue without a lot of this stuff. And it can, in fact, just like you say, be supplemented.
mm.
It sounds strange to say I'm going to supplement a supplement with actually the real thing that it was originated with, but you can supplement it just with
Yeah, yeah,
tweaks back in your diet, where you say to yourself, oh,
yeah,
I'm just going to increase the lean protein, or I'm going to have a bit more fiber in my diet, or I'm going to have a smoothie every other day because my vitamins and minerals I personally believe aren't where they're supposed to be. Okay, well then you make those
mm,
adjustments in that side of it, because as much as food is increasing as well, there's lots of clever ways, and there's some great stuff out there on Gov UK, as well as a lot of shops and stuff where people can make some real savings on food these days. People are out there to help us with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's thinking about the extra stuff that's in stuff as well. Because like a bag of protein, for example, it's amazing for getting protein in your system, but all that's got is protein in it. So it's 100% for protein, which is great for what multiple reasons. But if you have a bit of steak, for example, it's a bad example because that's quite expensive. But if you have an equivalent of a food version of protein, like you say, it sounds weird saying a food equivalent of protein. It should be the other way around, but it's like your mentality. But the other stuff that's in a bit of steak, so you've got some healthy fats in there, the other sort of vitamins and minerals and stuff, you're getting all that as well as the protein. Whereas all the supplements are just what the supplement is, if that makes sense. So whether you have like fibrous sort of pasta or something like that, or a nice healthy sort of dinner, there's probably 20, 30 other good things in there, as well as fiber, as well as protein, as well as this, as well
That's
as
it.
that.
It's this aspect of complete food, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't understand that when you say complete food and you're like full, well-rounded nutritional basis, because they always say the devil's in the dose, because too much of any one thing is terrible. I knew lots of people that took masses and masses of protein myself, and they got fucking kidney stones, and they got issues with the hydration and with their gut, because too much of anything is not good for you. The devil's in the dose. I wanted to ask you about something that's really important to me, and as I've started doing more VA instructing and stuff like that, it's really dragged itself into the forefront of mind, because we spoke a lot about food and stuff. Talk to me about hydration, because it's never something that we can talk about too much, I think.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because it's such a simple. I was going to say sort of cheap, but it's free. It's such a massive thing, and the impact as well it has on your body. Yeah, you could go out when it's raining and it's there.
It falls from the sky for free.
But it's exactly. Sort of God's trying to help as much as he can. Just have it. But it's and the knock-on effect is way beyond the stuff that's advertised. It doesn't. It just improves every part of your body, because obviously I was going to say we're what 70% water or whatever the stat is ourselves. But if every sort of process of our body, our movement, our joints, the way that any sort of process in our body, so including like metabolism, for example, everything is improved the more water you drink. Obviously, there's a limit. Don't go sort of drowning yourself.
But so few people will ever do that. People say about overhydration, and it's so difficult to do that. And I think it's something like 75%, because I was looking at it before we came on. 75% of adults are underhydrated, drinking on average 2 cups of water a day. And when I heard that, I was like, fucking hell, no way. But then I thought about it, and actually, like, I use my wife as an example, because some days she's great, but when she's not good, she drinks like 3 cups of tea in a day, and that'll be it. She won't have any water sometimes. And we were sitting down at dinner, and I'll always, like, if I'm cooking, she'll do the drinks, and if she's cooking, I'll do the drinks. And like so often we'll sit down when it's her time to do the drinks, and she won't have a drink for herself. And it's just like, it just speaks of that subconscious fact that so many people don't consider having. Every time I eat, I'm going to have a glass of water, or every time I have a cup of tea, I'm also going to have a glass of water, or even just carrying a bottle around with them. Things for me, like I went to the hospital the other day for a checkup, and I only took a 500 milliliter bottle with me, and I was really annoyed when I was sat in the waiting area for like an hour and a half, because I'd already drank the whole fucking thing, and I didn't have anxiety, but I was almost like, I'm going to be sat here for fucking ages. I haven't got a fucking drink. Do you know what I mean? And so many people wouldn't give a shit. They'd probably just happily go 4 or 5 hours with no water at all, and then they'd probably think, "Oh, I'm hungry." Well, actually, most of the time, like when people think they're hungry, they're usually just thirsty.
I was just going to say that there's a couple of things there that I was going to add that you've already said, but about sort of carrying a bottle. Because again, that's one of the first things forgive you, but that's one of the first things I tell to people is just buy a bottle and carry it around with you. And even another little tip I picked up from someone else, I can't remember who it was, so apologies if anyone is listening, it was their idea. But I got someone to get a normal sort of water bottle, and because they say roughly 6 or 7 glasses of water, and that's not pint glasses, that's like a little tumbler a day is the minimum really, ideally more, but so 6 or 7 glasses. And then I've had a lot of people who say, I can't sort of drink that. It bloats me out. I can't sort of down a drink of water. And I said, no, I'm not saying you don't have to drink it or eat all at once. And you don't have to have a glass of water each time. if like you get a bottle and you put like say if you work out this bottle for example, it's probably I'd say 2.5 of these bottles a day or 3 bottles of these a day is what's recommended. So don't think you have to walk around and guzzle it. Have elastic band around there. Have 2 elastic bands. So once you've drunk 1 bottle and you've refilled, take off elastic band. You know you've got sort of 2 left. You take off another elastic band once you've had another bottle, and it's those little simple things. And when you're on your desk and you're just sort of glancing at your bottle, you think, "Oh, I've still got a bloody elastic band on there, and I've got an hour." It gives you a little bit of a challenge, and it's so sort of simple, and it stops you thinking. And just a little sort of sip every 10 minutes. Have a sip is what I said to one woman once. That's all you have to do. And over the day, obviously, God knows how much that she drank. I can't remember how much it was, but it was a lot of water. So it's and make sure you have one with lunch, with breakfast, and with dinner. Straight away, there's half your daily amount. So if you just have a glass of water with your main meal, sort of straight, it's using those sort of techniques. Because a lot of people, you see a fact and a figure saying you've got to drink sort of this many sort of milliliters or this many glasses, and people start to freak out and think, "Oh, that's loads, that's loads." But all you've got to do is break it down into manageable chunks. And it's interesting. I speak to a lot of blokes as well, and who have the same sort of thing. If they don't drink water, but then they go out on a Saturday night and they drink 4, 5, 6 pints of lager,
I know.
that's fine. And
Fucking
then
madness,
like
isn't
they
it?
do that in
Yeah.
2 or 3 hours, but they won't drink half that over 24 hours. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. And the excuse is like, oh, I don't want to have a piss. Even if you're working at your desk, they say every 40 minutes. And most people do this anyway. You get up and go and do something else because you're bored or your mind's just switched off. So if every 45 minutes you needed a wee, which would be too much, but even if you did need a wee every 45 minutes, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, look, I'm sat here now. I've got this National Fitness Games bottle. I've got this. I've got to think about steel bottles now as well. Like, the more I read things about
they do look
plastics,
nice.
the
Yeah,
more I'm like, I should drink out of metal more often. So I've got these freaking two, which I've drank
yeah.
this morning. And then, to be fair, I have got a plastic bottle here, which has just got some, funnily enough, what we've just been saying. It's got some amino acids in it because we've done some
Vodka in
training. Yeah, it's got vodka in it. Yeah, it's a fucking rough day. But no, you're right. And I'll just keep. I probably drink too much in terms of, I think if we did run the numbers on me, I think my minerals and electrolytes and stuff would be slightly low as a result of me probably drinking too much. But I'd rather be that end of the spectrum because it keeps my mind firing, my synapses, my body, my tissues, everything. It's better to be that slightly overhydrated than underhydrated, 100%, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, going back to the mental and physical side of it, mentally, and this is sort of like a personal thing, but it is I feel a lot more sort of switched on when I can feel when I'm hydrated and when I'm not, sort of basically. So if I've had a day, because a lot of my job now is driving about, and I'll be going from station to station and things. So, and sometimes I might go 3, 4 hours without a drink just because I've gone to one meeting, I've gone to another one, I've bounced around a little bit. But by the end of the day, I'm so mentally more tired when I know I haven't sort of drunk enough, and like I'm a bit sort of mentally slower, if that makes sense, not in
Mm.
a medical way, but like and like my sort of decision making is slower, and I don't feel as sort of decisive and switched on, if you like. When I know when I've drunk a lot of water, I'm a lot more like on the ball. And physically as well. I had a while ago. I did a run. I was training for a 10 mile run thing, and my knee sort of it got really sort of swollen and was painful, and it was all down to, is it the synovial joint, like on my kneecap. Basically, the joints that need sort of liquid to roll on top of each other.
Synovial
And I
fluid,
wasn't
yeah.
sort of drinking enough water, and yeah, and the physio, it came from physio sort of randomly. It's not always a great source of information, but he was saying it's so important to keep hydration, because obviously that is pure sort of liquid. So that is only being, if you don't sort of drink enough, it's things like that that get affected really quickly. So a quick little thing, if you've got a lot of knee pain or joint pain and hip pain, increase your water intake and see if that works. It's not always a drastic thing of having to be bent, sort of twisted
Marginal gains.
and in
Again,
complicated ways. Exactly.
it's not going to be the
Trial and error.
answer to all of your joint issues, but it's going to be a
Mm.
marginal gain. Like, most people will say things like, "Oh, I need surgery on my knee," and you're looking at them and you're like, your diet's
Mm.
shit, you're underhydrated, and you're overweight. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
if you fix those three things, your knee will not need surgery. But if you fix
Yeah.
those three things and got some physio, you would feel 60% better than you do right now. And you might be able to push that surgical intervention back a number of years. we like to lean on things
And the other benefits
that,
as well.
yeah, oh yeah, God, so many of the benefits to avoiding surgery. I haven't had surgery myself. Once you have a mechanical change to your body, you have to recalibrate fucking everything else. You know, how your
Mm.
body runs, throws, the gait of your walk, oh, fucking everything. The body has to learn. As an adult, it has to learn the same things it had to learn as a child. Only now it's got all of these biases about how it thinks it should walk and stand and sit and all this sort of stuff. So
Mm.
yeah, if you can overcome a lot of those with behavioural or environmental changes, which is what we're talking about here. You know, you haven't got to have the big drastic life changes. You can rely on some of these marginal gains.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not ever going to be bad for you, sort of something like that as well. Like if somebody said if you drink 4 pints of Guinness every day, then it might make you run faster. Obviously, if you tried that and that didn't work, that's bad because all the bad stuff of having 4 pints of Guinness every day would hit you. So not only you're not running faster, but if you somebody says increase your water, even if it doesn't affect your knee, it doesn't make any difference. There's so many other benefits of it. It's not ever going to be bad for you. It's only going to improve things. So I'm a massive believer in start small, just tick off the things that are easy, that are cheap, that are free, and then sort of build from there. And going back to the supplements, if you've got an amazing sort of diet, you're hydrated, you're doing everything asked for, and you're still not sort of reaching like the size you want or the speed you want or whatever, then you can look into supplements and tweaking things. But all that should be an add-on to having a decent basis.
So next time we're going to come in, we're going to be speaking about sugar. We're going to be speaking a little bit about some documentaries and things and why it's not fucking landed for people yet. How it's managed to get into everything that we seem to be putting in our face, into all of our drinks, into all of our beverages, food, supplements, our entire lifestyle. And then I think we're going to be looking at a little bit around New Year's and this
Mhm.
concept of resolutions and how people are going to navigate Christmas.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'm doing a bit. There could be a crossover actually because I'm doing. We got like a newsletter that goes out every month and that, and I'm doing a bit about sort of. I'm calling it. Well, it's really cheesy, but it's the 12 days of fitness. I'm calling it to see what I did there.
I see what you did.
So,
I see.
but they're basic sort of tips of. I think it starts from Christmas Day and a little daily tip for the next sort of 12 days or something of just how to get back into exercise in general. They're sort of basic stuff. I think what I really sort of like about you, and I think we're on similar sort of wavelengths. Like if you sort of looked at me and you, like you're in amazing shape, you know, ripped to fuck and all that. But I think we've got quite similar sort of mentality on how we view stuff. And you're not one of these sort of big blokes who goes, no, you've got to have creatine, you've got to have BCSAs on over your cornflakes. You're very much and your mentality is normal despite the way you look. Do you know what I mean? And I mean that's a compliment. But
Yeah, that's come by accident after all the fuck ups though. Like
right.
if I hadn't have had the fuck ups, I wouldn't have had those moments of realization because I'd have stayed stuck in my own dogma. If you know what I mean, I'd
Yeah.
have stayed stuck. It's only when I've unplugged from those echo chambers and then sat with a doctor, then sat with a physio, then sat with a counselor during rehab or something like that, where you get to see outside the bubble and you get to look at the bubble and go, oh shit, I was in a bubble. When you're so ingrained in that fitness life, and this really speaks about so many areas of life, we all live in tribes. We don't think we're in a cult, but we are in a cult. But the problem is the boundaries of our cult extend so far that we don't realize we're in a cult because we can't see the boundary. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're,
100%.
you're
100%.
so much
Yes.
in the middle of it that you
Mm.
don't realize it. And it's only when someone has come to pick me up from that call and say, Pete, you need to come and do this for a minute, like I've
Yeah.
had an injury or something like that. And then they take you outside of it and you go, oh
Yeah.
shit, is I in a cult? And they go, yeah, yeah, lots of people are in there, don't worry. But
Yeah.
and then you can go back in there, but you kind of
Yeah.
go back in there with this different set of knowledge where someone goes, yeah, we need to have this every day, don't we, Pete? And I'm like, not really. You know,
Yeah.
I don't do it, and it's not really, it's not made any difference to me. I'm still as fit as you, or I'm still winning these things. It's not
I think
actually that important.
sort of somebody said, I don't remember who it was, someone a lot more sort of clever than me, but he said the only sort of a difference between a cult and a religion is the amount of people that do it. So if you saw sort of two people that were squeezing like the blood out of a rabbit, you'd think they're absolutely crazy. If you see 1,000 people doing it, you'll go, oh, I've got to do that. Look, it looks like it works. So
Mate, you are so right. And I always say to people when we talk about different belief sections and different habits and stuff that people do, and people say, "Oh God, that's really weird." I always go, imagine the first person that said, hey, you see that cow over there? I'm
Yeah,
going to go
yeah,
squeeze
yeah,
its udders, and whatever comes out there, I'm going
yeah.
to drink it. Or you
I'm
see
gonna
that?
put makeup on it, and
Yeah, you see that chicken? Whatever next thing that
yeah,
comes out of its arse, I'm going to eat it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And people will be like, "What the fuck is this?" You know. And now it's like, "Oh
And
yeah, everybody,
caviar and stuff like
everybody
that.
does that." Yeah, and you're just like, "Well, that's just because it's broken into the mainstream. You know, it's
Yeah,
it's become
definitely.
adopted by the masses."
Which could be
Um,
another sort of subject in the future, actually, if we sort of look at stuff, how things have only a rough guide of what
yeah,
like fads that have happened, and some that have worked, and some that have sort of died off, and
yeah. I
some that
would
have carried
love
on.
for
That'd be
us to.
quite
I know we're
interesting.
going to do an episode on fasting at some point because I've been going down that rabbit hole recently, mate. And
All
there's
right.
some really interesting stuff around what. So like, why? And I'll just leave the cliffhanger on like, why is there so much focus on this 16:8? What is the 8 hour
Yeah,
window?
yeah,
Where did that come from? And it's a
yeah,
really it's a really simplistic explanation behind it. As so many of these things are. People think, oh, I bet there's a really interesting scientific
yeah.
reason for that. There isn't for this one. It's fascinating.
Same with
It's really
the,
it's
in
really
the
good.
10,000 steps thing as well. That
Oh mate,
you know,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
all just
10,000
sort
steps. Where did we
of
arrive at
plucked
that?
out of yeah, yeah.
It's such an
But yeah,
interesting one.
that'd
Make
be
a
an
note of
interesting
it.
podcast,
We'll do that.
actually.
We'll
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
chat about them.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Good
All right, my
start, mate.
man.
Thank you very much.
I love you lots. Look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon. Go and make the UK Fire and Rescue Service fitter and healthier. Go and pretend to be busy.
Yeah.
You've got 5 days of pretending to be busy now.
Yes, I'm on it. I've got some paper to do that now. I look really busy when I do.
Go into a room with a clipboard and then go, oh, God, I
Yeah,
can't stay. I'm really busy. Yeah, you just kind of you need to time it, don't you? You do a little bit of work to start with, and then you go to that
yeah,
station for breakfast, and then you ring ahead to the next one and go, oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll join you for lunch. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Then you can just sit there in a judgmental fashion whilst they eat too much food.
yeah. And then I go home and go through the drive-through on the way home, but they
Yeah.
don't know that.
And they wonder which one of you you're there to see, and you're like, "Can I just have a chat with you after lunch, mate?" Yeah, you're next for your
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
So we're back next week, okay? Love it. All right, mate. Well, send my love to the family, and I look forward to
I
checking
do.
in with you
You
soon,
too.
brother. All right, mate. Love you,
Okay,
bye.
pal.
The Firefighters podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.